What's up guys, it's the new sensation Big Notation here, and today I'm going to be coming in with a new updated AoD deck profile with the new dash pack support. And I have literally just come off the back of playing in the ZENKAI Cup with this list and managing to pilot it to a 5th place finish, only losing out to my teammate Mikey, or Michael. He's a Polish guy and he was playing SS4 Goku Xeno, which is a very, very strong deck against AoD because it has quite a good amount of value of barrier removal, as well as the ability to just put on a lot of pressure with very tall battle cards with all of the overarm stuff that it can do. So yeah, that was our only loss in the end. I believe I faced 2 Gammas, a red SS4 Gogeta, obviously Mikey on black SS4, a Majin Vegeta and a Trunks Gita. So other than Mikey, I managed to win all of those matchups, which was very nice. Also, apologies if my voice sounds off or if I end up coughing a little bit throughout this recording or anything. I am just recovering from a cold. It's very cold here in the UK right now. As you can see, I'm all wrapped up with the blanket and everything, so apologies if that affects the video in any way. But yeah, going into the actual deck and the new dash pack support, the new dash pack support is insane. I think that Bandai have done an incredible job for all of the dash pack support, really. Just in general, those packs are like... that's exactly how we want to be seeing legacy support done. I did like what they were doing with the new TP stuff, like putting in a couple of legacy support cards here and there in those. But this dash pack support has just gone far and above any of my expectations for any sort of legacy support that Bandai is going to be putting out. And it supported like a good few of my favorite decks as well, so AoD being one of them, obviously Bojack. Supreme Kai is a deck I've always wanted to try out, so you might be able to see some deck profiles on those fairly soon as well. And also, if you can see now, or you might have seen in some previous streams or stream highlights, we've got a bit of a new setup since Christmas. We've got like improved camera, improved face cam, everything's just like better quality, so hopefully I can keep improving the quality of all of these videos for you guys to watch. But that's enough rambling from me. We'll get straight into the deck profile. So for those that don't know, the ZENKAI Cup was 6 rounds, best of 1 pre-side, so I think it's the first pre-side webcam event that we've ever had in the EU, at least. I've not heard of any others, at least. So it was a very interesting experience. I have to give a massive shout out to the organisers, Raid and Trade. They did an incredible job running the event. The judges made sure everything ran smoothly. There were no hiccups, there were no repairs. Like it just ran, and it was really, really incredible. And obviously shout out to all my opponents as well. I had a really nice time meeting everyone and playing some people that I played before as well. And there were a good few people there from the Scrub Games webcam locals who I bumped into, and I was like, oh shit, I've seen you in I saw you the other day when we played. It was very good fun. I really enjoyed it. It's great. It's always a great time seeing members of the Dragon Ball community. But you know, we'll get straight into the deck profile. So leader is Babidi, leader of the Agents of Destruction, flips over to Majin Buu, leader of the Agents of Destruction. I'm not going to cover the leader. I'm going to try not to cover all of the old cards, because by now people should know what this deck does. And if you don't, then you can go and watch some of my older deck profiles on it, where I actually break everything down. We'll mainly focus on like dash pack support and how this deck I think performs in the meta right now as well. So like standard stuff that you want to see in your opening hand are the 4 Hachiaks, and then the 3 Babidis which you can play off it. I still don't think you need 4 Babidi. You do have a lot more blue charges in the deck now with the addition of the new Janemba, but like I've also taken out Blue Unison to the side deck, and I still don't think you need 4 Babidi. Like it doesn't feel good to draw, and it means you need a blue charge to actually play it turn 1. And also, like, deck space is really tight in this deck. Adding the 4th Babidi doesn't really increase your odds all that much of seeing one in the opening hand. So you're better off just, like, freeing up that extra deck slot, and then just hoping that you find Hatch. Which I don't think I struggled to find Babidi at all today. I believe that at least every turn 1 I would get it out, even if I had to find the Hatch off the leader top 5. But I had a pretty easy time finding the Babidi today, which was always felt good. Didn't lose to any sort of RNG there. And then we've got the 4 Agents of Destruction Strike Back. So this is just Pot of Greed, but on steroids. You need 4 of this card. You want to see it at least every turn. It's just incredible. Also, going back to the Babidi point, the fact you don't need 4 anymore. Babidi is a lot more susceptible than it used to be, so you might think that you need 4 in that respect, but because of the dash pack support, the deck, and because of the Z deck, the deck has a lot of ways to play without Babidi. So I was just having turns where people had removed my Babidi, and I just leave it and continue to play without Babidi for a couple of turns. And most of the time, if they focus too much on removing the Babidi, then I can just kill them without Babidi the next turn, and that did happen a few times. So like the deck is really not as reliant on Babidi as it used to be anymore, which is really, really nice, because it is a lot more susceptible. There's a lot more barrier removal in the game right now. But as long as Babidi sticks around for like turn 2 and turn 3, you're probably fine to just let it die sometimes. So yeah, I feel like you don't really need more than 3 Babidi. And then for the interaction during your opponent's turn, we have 4 Android 13 counterplay. This card is still really strong. I feel like it's not as strong as it used to be in the formats that I played it in previously, with like Ultimate Cell running around, Trunks Cheetah and U7. There were obviously a lot of targets for Android 13 to hit. Whereas in this format, it's more like SS4 Gogeta is going to be blind playing all of its cantrips on the Unison or the Leader autos. So like you have to blind counterplay into it, which is pretty much never worth doing. And then against Crimson, this like hits cantrips, but it doesn't really hit all that much else. Like a lot of the Crimson stuff has deflect or is higher than 3 cost. But it does, against blue, it does hit the Birasi battle card, which means you have protection, like more protection for the Super Namekian Slug, which is absolutely massive. And then against Green Cooler, I would say is the other, those are like the 3 top decks I'd consider right now. Against Green Cooler, this doesn't really hit anything off the top of my head either, because I think people are cutting the 1-drop now as well. But like it's still a really good card. Like against the 2 Gamma players I played against, anytime they floodgated me with Android 14 or the new Android 17 TP, this was just coming down and forcing out a card from their hand. And if they Android 14 floodgated, that's 3 cards out their hand just for 1 energy, which is insane. And like it's still absolutely worth running this card at 4, because like as well as being such a great counterplay for when it does come up, it's also a green charge, and I've cut the old Broly AoD because I just think that card has always been fairly bad. I've cut that in place for a couple of the new dash pack cards, so you are a little bit shorter on green charges now, which is why this card is still like very, very important, on top of the fact that it's a fantastic card. And then for the rest of the interaction during your opponent's turn, you have Garlic. This really just punishes people's, like this isn't a hard negate in my head, because if your opponent's going to try and kill you, these guys are most likely not going to save you, because you'll only be able to negate like 1 or 2 swings, and then if you have token negates, you may be okay. But like most of the time, this isn't to actually save your life, it's to punish your opponent for overextending. If your opponent is swinging their last swing of the turn into you, and you know that it's their last swing, they've like tapped out or whatever, you know that they're not going to play anything else because they need energy up for your next turn, you can just punish them with this guy, develop 2 bodies, and then if you bring out, well, there's a load of targets now, but like you can just bring out the most appropriate target for the situation, which we'll go over in a sec. So like this guy, yes, it's a hard negate, but it's more of a punishment for your opponent extending. And then on top of that, it's just a 1 energy play 2 guys on your turn. And there were times, again, if I'm missing Babidi, I would just free play this guy off of leader to get 2 more 15k swings on top of like all of the other stuff you can do now, which is, yeah, this deck really doesn't need Babidi past turn 3 anymore, which is actually really insane. Like other than reducing the Android 13 counterplay, or if you didn't have a Super Namekian stick about, you don't, yeah, those are the only 2 situations where you might want to still play out Babidi. And then the targets for the Garlic are the 4 Turles. Basically, if you don't see this on turn 2 and you don't get it established on turn 2, you can just hold energy up for Garlic, and then when they swing into you, just negate the attack and play it from deck instead. But this is how you keep your hand size up, especially once you've awakened, because you don't draw on the awakened side. So you just keep this guy swinging and drawing. And I was hitting hand sizes of like 14 or 15 cards over the course of a couple of games this tournament. So like, even though the deck doesn't draw on the backside, it still draws a ridiculous amount. And then the other targets are the 4 Little Slug not Super Namekian, the Super Combos. So this guy, I still think that you run 4 of this super combo over like a 2-2 split because of the fact that this is searchable, and searchability in super combos is like extremely, extremely valuable, even if you don't draw off of like comboing it or anything like that. But also, when this guy's on the board, if your opponent activates a counterplay skill, they have to discard 2 cards, and that auto isn't once per turn. So, like, if you get a Garlic established and then you can pull this guy out because you already have Turles, this guy is just going to mean that you don't really get counterplayed ever, which is amazing, especially against matchups like Gamma, where you have to spend a lot of time considering their Android 18 counterplay and playing around it. A lot of that matchup comes down to if you can establish this slug or not, and just safely keep it there for your next turn, ideally using the Garlic swing on their last attack on the turn so that they can't then remove it, and then keeping it around for your turn so that they can't really afford to Android 18 counterplay it. And then for some of the new cards, we've got 3 of the new Janemba. This is a card that I really like, but I don't think... Like, I've kind of gone back and forth between thinking that 4 copies of this card is correct and 2 copies of this card is correct. So I tried out 3 for today, and 3 felt absolutely fine. But going forward, I think that you could potentially go down to 2. I'm not entirely sure on that one, but I think that 3 is a solid number for this card right now. I don't think that you need 4 of it anymore. I'd consider putting it to 2, but I think that 3, I think 3 is a decent ratio for this one right now. So what he does is he has 2 permanents, the first being that this card's original skills can't be negated in any area, and the second being that this card can't be added to a player's hand. His auto burst 1, when he's played from your hand specifically, you draw a card. And he's got an activate main limit 1, where if you've got 3 or more energy, you can bounce an AoD from your board to your hand, and then at the end of the turn he'll restand. So basically the utility of this guy is that he can recycle your agents that are already on board. Like I said, once you're awakened, you don't draw. You can't search your AoDs that consistently, especially if you're missing out on Turles, or if they've killed it. And so Janemba is just going to be your way of recycling the agents that you've already got on board to effectively keep you drawing cards and get you those extra swings. And like a lot of the agents just have really strong on-play effects, or like you can bounce Garlic or Android 13 for your opponent's turn after using them for a swing. So that's really strong. And then the fact that it draws on play is also really sweet. I don't think I played this from hand very often. But yeah, it's a very, very nice card and a very strong addition to the deck. And especially because if you play it off of Garlic, because of this card's first permanent, its skills won't be negated off of Garlic's skill. So you can pay 1 for Garlic on your turn, you can then play this guy from deck. You get 2 15k swings, and then you can bounce the Garlic back to your hand with the Janemba skill if you've got 3 or more energy. Doing that, you wouldn't get the draw because that's only when you're played from your hand. But it's still a very, very strong play, and that's a lot of the time what I was doing when I was missing the Babidi on like turn 3 or 4, was I was doing a load of shenanigans with some of the non-AoD cards I'm running and some of the other new AoD card, the Omega Shenron, and then the Z deck as well. But then I'd free play a Garlic off of leader effect, free play out this from deck as well, and then go swing 15, swing 15, and then I'd bounce Garlic back to hand for extra combo power to go for a kill swing. It's just really nice. And if you have, I've had times where Omega Shenron stuck about as well, so you can bounce the Omega Shenron to get another triple strike swing or another pop through barrier, draw a card. There were matchups where I sided this down to 2, like against Gamma, because you're playing around that Android 18 for most of the game. This card you don't really want to be dropping because you don't really want to just be paying an energy from to play something from your hand. You want to give them the option of counterplaying something that's a free play, or basically putting them in positions where they don't want to be counterplaying the cards that you're playing. So there were times where I sided this down to 2 copies, but like space is really tight in this deck, and so so siding cards in and out can be really, really tricky, which is why this ended up being one of the flex spots that I chose. And then going on to kind of the bigger AoDs, I guess. We've got still 4 of the AoD Lord Slug. This is still like the main centerpiece of the deck, and you can consistently get this guy out on turn 2 to then establish the Super Namekian, which I think I did like pretty much every game. At least half of the games I would get Super Namekian down turn 2, because it's super easy to awaken on turn 2 at 4 life. And with the new Boozy battle card, you can in theory awaken turn 2 at 6 life and still pull off this combo. But doing that doesn't leave any energy open for you to defend the Super Namekian with, which can be tough. So I don't really advise doing that, and I never actually used the Boozy battle card to awaken myself during this tournament. I don't think that that's really what it's necessary for. I think that it's mainly just for the other activate main being as busted as it is. But like this card, you can consistently pull this combo off on turn 2. It's very, very easy to pull off because you just need your opponent to have hit you once and then seen 1 strikes back. Or if your opponent hasn't hit you, you just see 2 strikes back, and then you're absolutely fine. And then for the activate main, to pay 1 green and play a Slug's Army from your hand that costs 3 or less, we're then playing the 3 Super Namekians as the targets. So yeah, this is why you need green energy in the deck, and why I am a little sad that I cut the Broly, because you are lacking in green energy a little bit now. There were times where I charged Android 13s that I kind of didn't want to, and there were times where the fact that I didn't have a green energy did mean that I couldn't pull off this play, which was frustrating. So I definitely could see myself just upping the green count a little bit in this deck, but I don't really know like what good cards I'd put in there. Right now I think we're on 10 green cards in the main board, being the 4 slugs, the 4 Android 13s, and then 2 more cards. And I am considering cutting the other 2 green cards, so the green count isn't holding very strong right now, but maybe we'd have to look into some other cards we can play. But like, this combo is extremely strong in this format. Against SS4 Gogeta, this is how you win, because they, first of all, they don't get their insane hand sizes. And against the SS4 Gogeta player I played against, I wasn't even able to get this down turn 2, I could only get it down turn 3. And luckily I'd gone first in that matchup, so he hadn't gone too crazy yet. He just established his Unison and done his Awaken turn. But I was then able to establish this down, and it just like completely stopped all of his draw power. And then it meant that I could build a massive board on my turn 3. And then going into his turn 4, a turn or 2 later, I knew that I was completely safe against the 8 drop. I didn't have to worry about him clearing my board. And so I would just defend my life total, defend the Super Namekian, and I was absolutely fine from then on. And then I could force the Z Awaken like a turn later. So this is like how you win against SS4. It does work against every matchup because it turns off almost every super combo in the game. It turns off things like Realms, it turns off things like the pseudo super combos. I know some people run Infernal Villainy Cell and the red Saiyan that people run in Crimson as well. Like, it's just a really, really obnoxious card, and because you have a counterplay that hits like a very wide range of cards, and a hard negate that then extends your board further and can bring out super combos to protect your slugs more, you just have like a really, really good inbuilt defense for this Super Namekian, so it really fits well within the deck. And it just means that you can basically play like a control deck, but then really put the pressure onto your opponent the following turns if they don't have the removal. And this is again like another reason why Android 13 is so strong, is because you can hit the Birisi battle card. So like, blue doesn't actually have a way to deal with this, even though you may think that they now would, because you can just counterplay the Birisi battle card out the way, which is like blue's only real barrier removal still. So like, it's super easy to protect this card, and a lot of the game plan just becomes protecting this card. And again, against Trunks Cheetah, this is how you win, because then they can't EX evolve, and they lose a lot of their draw power from their leader skills. Because for the leader skills, they have to like bring out a guy from drop, and then the guy from drop can't draw a card, so they have to just draw a card off their leader instead. And then they lose the like constant reviving from drop. They lose out on being able to EX evolve ever, and so they have to rely on like defending and building up a board with like riposts and stuff, and then killing you on the clapback with like a cooler plus a secret rare or something like that. So like, Super Namekian really does just carry this deck in a lot of matchups, but that's what this deck really needs at the end of the day. Otherwise it would be just a 15-20k swarm aggro deck without any actual backup. And then the only other 3-cost AoD that we're running, other than the Hatch and the Slug, are 3 of the Baby Janembas. And honestly, I found this card kind of overwhelming at times today. And I also did have a couple of times, I think I had 2 turns where I didn't have a 3-cost to play off my leader, where I did have Babidi out. And so I just had to play a 2-cost, or just not play a card instead. Which did feel a little bit bad, but in those specific cases, I did happen to be playing around certain cards, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world. Like, I can see situations where I would need a couple of other 3-drop AoDs just to get max value out of the leader first activate main. But like, this card is still very fine. It's offering, so like most of the time you're drawing 2, and then it's a blocker. And this deck, with the new Z Battle card, has got a lot of defense now. It's got obviously Garlic, Android 13, and this is a blocker. And what I found is like, one blocker normally doesn't do anything because people can remove one blocker fairly easily, but when you start going into like 2 blockers or 3 blockers if you've got a token negate, that's when the defense can actually start to really be impactful. And so like boarding this guy along with the new Z Battle card and holding a token negate in hand, it actually makes you really unkillable, especially if you have the option to leave energy open for an Android 13 or Garlic as well. So like there were times where my opponent beamed or they used imposing presence, that sort of thing, so I didn't want to keep swinging with anything that wasn't really tool, and so I just leave this guy open as a blocker, and it would actually just defend my life total or defend slug harder. It is definitely a really nice card to have. And then for the other new card, we have 3 of the Omega Shenron, and I really thought this card would be a 3 of. I think it could be a 4 of. I think that this card is like really insane. Every time I dropped it, it just felt amazing, and it's super easy. Like I was dropping this card on turn 2 on some games because I'd see 2 strikes back, and that would be 2 cards in my drop area. I'd have seen Hatch, so that's another card in my drop area. I'd have 2 energy, which would be 2 more in my energy. I have my leader, and then I have a Turles on board, and that's all 7 that you need for this guy's requirement. So like, this guy is really easy to drop. He's also a yellow charge, which is now relevant because of the Z deck, which we'll get into later. But he also is the deck's barrier removal, and I'll bring in this card at the same time because this card is another card I was main decking today. I had it in the side deck on the Scrub Games webcam locals, which I will have gameplay uploaded probably in the next day or so. I had it in the side deck for that, but just found myself siding it in every matchup, so I replaced Boo Unisons in the main with this guy and sided the Boo Unisons instead. But this guy I ended up siding out quite a lot as well, and this was like my most flexible sideboard spot. I think that this deck, now that you have this guy and you have just like decent defense and recyclability with the Janemba, and with the defense coming from the Boo Z Battle card as well, I think that this deck can actually run properly without maining any Unisons, without maining this or the Boo Unison. They are definitely nice for certain floodgates, like Flying Nimbus-esque floodgates where it only stops battle cards, Pan as well, that sort of thing. And they definitely do have their merits in certain matchups, like this card is amazing against Trunks Gogeta, or just yellow in general. Boo is amazing against SS4 Gogeta, so like, they could be worth side decking, but I think that it could be worth testing and looking into a non-unison variant of the deck just in the main board. And this is also the last 2 green cards that I was considering cutting as well, because I was siding them out quite a lot today. But yeah, this card really does offer some invalidation towards the Vegeta Unison because you have barrier removal now, and that is something that this deck really struggled with before, and it is also something like just being able to hit cards that cost 6 or more was something this deck struggled with before, but now it's like, it's absolutely nothing between this card and the new Boo Z Battle card. So like, I don't think you really need the AoE board clear that much anymore unless they have multiple barrier threats, which you can just side those in for. And so I think that it could definitely be worth putting this to 4. I don't own a 4th copy, which is why I wasn't ever testing it, but this card is just snapped. And then there were some games where I'd swing triple strike, my opponent wouldn't have a negate, and I'd just go, okay, like, combo all in on the triple strike, you're dead. It's really insane, but most of the time it's just like a 1-drop 30k cantrip that either KOs a guy or draws you a card, depending on what you need. And then like, there were times where I was also just using the triple strike to threaten Unisons down because I didn't want to swing it to their leader if I didn't want to take them to certain life totals or give them combo steps. But yeah, this card is absolutely snapped, and I can definitely see myself going to 4 copies of this and probably cutting this guy down to the side deck as well. And then for the last cards, the non-AoD stuff, we have Pan, obvious secret rare of choice. I don't think that there's really any other secret rare you'd want to run. Pan is just like better than Cell Xeno, and then a lot of the other secret rares are too situational or too color locked to play in this deck. Dark Broly and Mirror were my 2 overarms of choice. I know previously I was playing Feigned Greeting in Mirror and really leaning hard into that hand control with the Slug package. And I did kind of like that theory to continue over into this format, especially with main decking the Vegeta AoD unisons. I only saw the mirror once in my first round, which was against Majin Vegeta, so I can't really say how good it is. But Dark Broly is like absolutely insane for being able to help you with clearing out token negates and anything else. And this combined with like Omega Shenron combined with the Boozy battle card means that your kill turns are just completely unstoppable most of the time. Because you'll get like two 30k swings and a 25k swing for 2 energy, and you'll remove 3 cards from their board. So like even if you don't kill them, you're pretty much clearing their board, and then you can just set up for the next turn to kill. So I definitely could see myself cutting this mirror and going 2 Dark Broly's in the main. I think that is what I'll be doing going forwards. I don't think the mirror holds as much merit now, because it only really worked clearing, like it's mainly there to clear early game unisons, which aren't as present in the format anymore because of the presence of Black Smoke. And it also worked really well in contingency with the Feigned Greeting to go hard into that hand control. But now that I'm not playing Feigned Greeting, there's less reason to play Mirror, so I think I should just go to 2 Dark Broly, if you follow my logic. And then the last 2 cards are 2 token negates. I did want to go to 3 of these, but I just could not find the space. There's very little space in this deck, as you have seen already. But these guys worked great, and I did side a third for matchups which I thought I needed them, which were basically either hard aggro decks like the SS4 Goku Xeno, or like Gamma, which are just, you know, decks that can struggle to deal with the token once it's out there. But I did end up siding in the 3rd token negate quite a lot. But we'll get into the Z deck next. So for the Z deck, we have 1 copy of the new Majin Buu. I would 100% up this to 3 copies if I owned it. I just only own the 1. We only got like a couple of dash packs into our locals, so I had to make do with what I had. Same with the other new ones. The 3 Janemba, I only own the 1 Janemba, and then my mate Sam, shout out to Sam, he let me borrow the other 2 for this event, and then I also only own the 3 Sins. This Buu is insane. He's a 5k blocker, 1 energy, 1 Z energy, which is great because this deck doesn't naturally build any Z energy, so like it's hard to actually go into the Z deck sometimes. But this guy, it just makes it really cheap. He's a 5k blocker. If your leader's if your leader's this guy, and you have 2 or more energy, you can flip him over and draw 2 cards by removing this from the game. That never came up. I don't think it really ever does. It's just nice to have, you know, as an extra awakening condition. If you draw really bad, you don't see strikes back, your opponent isn't swinging into you, you can just let yourself awaken to start putting the pressure on. And then it's got another activate main where if your leader's black and you have 3 or more energy, you can place a Z energy into the drop, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, place it under this card, and he becomes 25k until the end of your opponent's next turn. So this guy either becomes a 25k swing for 1 energy, 2 Z energy, and removal, or he becomes a 25k blocker that's also removal. So like this guy, yeah, he solves a lot of issues for the deck. He fixes your bad hands if you really are struggling to awaken, and then he also just allows you to have that extra pressure with the 1 energy 25k swing and that extra removal for 1 energy. And there's no restriction on what it can remove, so it can clear out tokens, it can clear out Z battle cards, it can clear out anything. And because it's choose up to 1 card, you don't have to choose a battle card. If they have a clear board, this is still a 1 energy 25k. And there were a couple games where this guy stuck about on my board, and I would just win off of it. Like, this guy is so insane. If I had 3 copies, I'd be playing 3. I'm then playing the 1 Surmounting the Impossible. This guy never came up, I don't think, or maybe came up once. It's just not... You don't really need it. You kind of maybe sometimes play it if you need to dig for a specific card if you're in a really desperate situation. But yeah, you don't really need it that much. And you never need it for the Awakening either. We've got 1 of this Goku. He's a 1 energy, 2 Z energy, 15k that can't be removed until the end of your opponent's next turn. And you're already charging a green energy for the slug, so like it's fairly easy to then just play this guy out the turn after if you need an extra 15k swing. This guy could probably get replaced by another Buu if I had another copy. We don't have another copy. Although, to be fair, the second activate main on the Buu is only limit 1, so there is some merit to actually playing a variance in Z battle cards, even if they are just 1 energy swingers. Just so that in the case where you need to drop like multiple attackers from your Z deck, you don't just drop like 3 Buus and then only one of them can actually swing 25. I was also running 2 Freezer in the Z deck. This guy never came up, although I expected him to, and there were a couple of times where if I charged the right energy, I could see myself playing this guy, but I just didn't have the green energy. I think this guy can go down to a 1-of. There are some really nice turns I've done in testing where I've dropped this guy along with a free play slug, swung the slug in, and they've dropped 2 off of 2 energy, and I've popped a guy, and then I can play Super Namekian if I have the energy. So, like, this guy is, in theory, pretty good, leans harder into that hand control. It just never ended up coming up today, but I still think it could be worth running. You'd probably cut the second copy though for another boo if you own it, and then same for this last card, which is the 2 Oolong. Greed is good. The second copy again never came up. It could have come up, but this card is unique, so it didn't end up coming up. But there were a couple of times where I did have the energy to drop a second one, but I couldn't because it's unique, so there's no... I don't really see the merit in running 2, unless it gets like realmed to the bottom of the deck. Then you could in theory run 2, but like I think that most of the time you're probably fine to get away with cutting these 2 to 1-ofs and then just running 3 boo. Or you could just cut the Freezer to a 1-off and run 2 boo and then 2 Oolong. It's kind of up to you at the end of the day. But yeah, the boo is absolutely snapped 100%. That card is so strong. And then we're going to the side deck that I was using for today. My side deck, I felt like it wasn't amazing, but it didn't end up performing badly. Like, there's a lot of cards that this deck can, in theory, side deck, but it's very locked to its engine as a deck, so there's actually very little flex room within the actual main board for you to be able to side all that much, even though it is a rainbow deck, so in theory you could like side any card you wanted. So the sideboard was 2 Majin Buu Unisons. This was to go in over the Vegeta Unisons in matchups where I needed it, which was basically against SS4 Gogeta. That was pretty much, I think, the only matchup that I ended up putting it in against. But it did end up really helping that matchup just to secure the fact that I wouldn't die on the clapback, basically. I was trying out siding 3 beans. This was specifically for hard aggro. I only brought it in against SS4 Goku Xeno. I didn't end up seeing it, so I have absolutely no idea how good the card is in the deck now with the errata. But it's still definitely worth testing in the sideboard. And then to continue with the counters to hard aggro, we were running the 1 Bardock Overrealm. This could probably be a 2-of. I don't own 2 copies, I only own the 1. So you do with that information what you will. But like with any of these Overrealms, I just side them in and then replace the Overrealms in the main deck for them. I was also running the 3rd Support of the Dark Empire, again for hard aggro, but also for Gamma, and just blue decks in general, because blue decks tend to struggle to deal with the actual token. And especially if against Gamma, once they drop the Z-Deck cell or the 9-drop cell, you can token negate and it just stops both of the attacks, so it's really nice in those spots too. And then for the other blue hate, we were running 2 Son Gohan Changing History. Again, this came in against both my Gamma matchups. And I was also running 2 Ghost Warriors. This didn't come in at all because I didn't think Gamma would be running Kaioken, which they weren't. And this, I didn't end up playing against any other blue decks, I don't think. So this didn't really end up doing much. But against Crimson, I could maybe see myself putting this in. I think most Crimson decks are running Beast Gohan nowadays, though, so I'm not sure how good this card is, because it's kind of hard to predict what blue SCRs people are running, and if you side in this card against a deck that isn't running Kaioken, it can just be a dead card, which kind of sucks. And then last few cards, 2 Petrification. Didn't side this in once. I don't really know what it's specifically for in this format. I just put it in the side deck because I thought it might be a good card against some stuff. But it didn't end up coming up. And then 2 of the Bojack AoD, which is a really nice call from Scrub Games. Definitely massively appreciate that call. This is a card that I always forget about, but I always love it when I remember it, because it's a Bojack and it's an AoD, but also it's a really cool card. So when it comes into play, you can rest one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier. So like back in the day, this was my barrier removal when I used to play AoD before the new dash packs. But it's also just really nice against token negates as well. You can rest the tokens, any blockers, that sort of thing. And it's also free playable off the leader because it's a 3-drop AoD, so bear that in mind. He's got an activate main for 2 energy, where if this card is in rest mode, choose your opponent's leader card and switch it to rest mode, and it can't be switched to active mode until the end of your opponent's next turn. So this is specifically meant to be for Crimson, SS4, any decks that are really reliant on leader swings like that. Because against Crimson, you actually have some decent time to set this card up, because the games against Crimson will take a bit longer. because it's a much slower deck. And so you can really just choke them out of their leader swings. They don't get that draw in untap. They don't get a lot of the power from their leader anymore. And if you can drop this guy early enough before they awaken, then you can just kind of stall them out before, like, you can make it so that they can't really awaken. You can build up a massive board of like barrier guys, and then just kind of kill them from there. I think that's a little bit more of a niche scenario, but in theory it could happen. But this is mainly for when they awaken. You can stop them from swinging with the leader. And what's nice about this card is, like, if you end your turn with the activate main and they're not awakened, they're still, even if they awaken, the effect kind of doesn't fall off in a way. I mean, it does fall off because they can switch their leader to active mode then, but they'll have also gone past their charge phase where they would have switched their leader to active mode. So unless they have a way to restand their leader, which is highly unlikely, you can still, like, pull this off when they're about to awaken, but they haven't yet, which is really nice. And then against SS4, the idea with this card is if you can get this card down and a slug down, you just win the game. That's game against SS4 every single time, because they, like, without the leader swings, they can't really play any of their arrival stuff efficiently. And they lose a load of their draw power off of all of the cantrips, off of the unison. And then they don't get the draw from their leader swings because of this guy. And it just becomes ridiculous. The only out for them at that point is if they run some stuff in the Z deck that they can get through you with, but then you have energy for Garlic Negates and Android 13 counterplays, so that's where those will come in. And if they're tapping under 4 and then they kill the Super Namekian, you don't care as much because they can't tap out for their big boy and clear the whole board. So, like, it's a very interesting card, but it really does put in the work in certain matchups. And, like, if you ever get this guy down with Super Namekian against any deck, really, it's probably just game from that point on. So it's a really, really nice sideboard card, and I do kind of want to mess around with it, maybe trying it out in the main deck as well, just as a one-off. But that is the deck profile, and obviously I've covered a couple of changes that I might see myself making in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope that if you guys have got access to the dash packs, because I know they're just impossible to find right now, I'm really feeling that as well. If you guys have got access to them, then I definitely recommend giving this deck a try. It's a really fun deck. It has a lot of different lines of play, a lot of different ways to build the deck as well. You can kind of build it to fit your own playstyle, like I've done, trying to build it more mid-range and control rather than full aggro, as well as, like, adding a bit of hand control in there because I'm a big hand control fan as well. But other than that, thank you guys as always for watching. If you guys do want to see some gameplay of this deck, I'll probably put a link in the description for the Scrub Games webcam locals I played this in, which was 5 hardcore rounds, so almost as long as the actual Zenkai Cup of playing AoD. So if that is up by the time I put this video up, I'll have a link in the description. If not, I'll put it in the description when I upload that video, so hopefully you'll see it at some point. But thank you guys as always for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.